We live in a time that worships control. Everywhere you look, there are tools, frameworks, and formulas promising the secret to a flawless life. Shelves groan under books that teach you how to schedule every breath. Speakers promise bulletproof leadership. Courses claim to unlock persuasion. Apps track your steps, your sleep, your heartbeat, as if a graph could finally give you peace. On the surface, it feels like we've mastered everything. But look closer. If we've captured the external world so well, why does the inner world feel like it's slipping through our fingers? Why are anxiety rates higher than ever? Why does depression spread in whispers? Why does an invisible emptiness expand even as we drown in choices, content, and constant stimulation? It hints at something we don't want to admit. Our obsession with controlling the outside is often a way to avoid what's inside. We've learned to move markets and press buttons, to automate tasks and polish our image. But when the spotlight turns inward, toward anger that suddenly flares, desire that tightens around the ribs, fear that locks you in place, our swagger disappears. The person who looks competent on the world's stage often feels lost in the privacy of their own mind. This tension isn't new. Over 2 millennia ago, the Buddha named the root of it a thirst, tanha. Not physical thirst, but a relentless psychological craving. A subtle hum beneath almost every thought and action. It's the itch that whispers, not this. Something else, something more. It's the silent script that says life should bend just a little more toward your preference. Just enough to finally feel right. That thirst promises fulfillment. It delivers restlessness. If it's hot, you long for cold. If it's cold, you search for warmth. When work piles up, you crave rest. When you rest, you critique yourself for not working. The mind wriggles, trying to crawl out of this moment into a better one. And the more it wriggles, the tighter the knot becomes. Desire itself isn't the enemy. Being owned by it is. You achieve a goal, and almost instantly your mind moves the finish line. You win, and the flavor fades. You succeed, and the bar rises. The cycle perpetuates itself. Not enough. Not yet. Like drinking salt water, the more you gulp, the thirstier you become. Worse, this thirst makes us fragile. When your peace is tethered to anything you can't control, the weather, a partner's mood, an algorithm, a market, you're at the mercy of shifting tides. Circumstances change, people falter, uncertainty arrives uninvited. If your calm depends on the world behaving, you'll feel like a castaway clinging to waves. And that's the turning point. If this thirst quietly pilots our choices, then our focus on external control isn't just ineffective, it's a distraction. The real cage is built in the mind, not the world. The illusion is thinking better tools can fix an inner storm. We confuse organizing life with mastering life. They aren't the same. We tell ourselves that if we perfect our calendar, optimize our routine, and tune our habits like a concert instrument, we'll finally find ease. We buy another planner, add another app, stack another technique on top of the last one, and yet the existential hum remains, softly vibrating behind the achievements, asking for more. Productivity is a good servant and a bad ruler. The problem isn't structure, it's the belief that structure alone can silence the inner noise. We try the same pattern with people. If I can anticipate them, shape them, nudge them, then I'll feel safe. But people are not code. They don't compile on command. The more tightly you grip, the more you feel them slip through your fingers. Control masquerades as strength, but it often reveals a fear you haven't faced. Why do we cling to this illusion? Because looking inward is uncomfortable. It's easier to rearrange the furniture of life than to stand in the empty room and meet yourself. It's easier to chase the next metric than to ask why you need the metric at all. We tell ourselves we're building a better life, and sometimes we are, but sometimes we're building a prettier distraction. Life will never obey your script. The unexpected will keep arriving on time. Weather changes, people change, you change. If your peace depends on the world staying still, you'll be bargaining with the wind. So where then does suffering begin? We usually point outward. I'm hurting because this happened, because they said that, because I lost this, didn't get that, was denied what I wanted. That story feels true, and it always contains truth. Loss hurts, betrayal hurts, failure stings, but there is another layer, the mind's reaction, the clinging, the refusal, the this must not be that tightens everything into a knot. Two people can live the same event and have two different worlds inside. One sinks, repeating this shouldn't have happened, while the other, shaken, yes, still finds a thread to move forward. The event is the same, the inner response changes the texture of reality. We can't always choose our circumstances, but we can learn how to meet them. That shift, from trying to control the storm to learning how to stand in rain, changes everything. This isn't self-blame, it's self-responsibility. It says, I can't stop waves, but I can learn to surf. I can't stop seasons, but I can learn to dress for them. I can't guarantee a particular outcome, but I can train the way I relate to outcomes. The paradox is simple and disarming. The more you try to dominate life, the more life dominates you. The more you try to lock every variable into place, the more anxious you feel when variables wiggle, as they always do. Real power isn't in freezing the river, it's in learning how to float. Think about anger. Most of us either clamp it down until it leaks somewhere else, or we erupt and regret what scorched the room. There's a third way. Notice it. Let it move through the body like a weather system. You don't suppress it. You don't act it out. You feel heat rise, breath shorten, thoughts tighten, and you stay. In that staying, something loosens. The emotion is still there, but it no longer drives the wheel. Fear works similarly. Fight it, and it grows teeth. Look at it, gently, steadily, and it loses the costume. It may still visit, but it stops being the landlord. This isn't passivity or resignation. Letting go is not giving up. It's shifting from compulsion to clarity. It's acting because it's the wisest step available, not because panic is pushing from behind. When your actions aren't fueled by grasping or aversion, they carry a different quality, steady, precise, effective. The modern script says, control time, control markets, control your image, control people. The older wisdom says, learn to steady the one thing you carry everywhere, your own mind. When that steadiness grows, even loud weather can't shake you. You become like a mountain in wind. The wind still howls, but the stone does not apologize for being stone. That is inner sovereignty, not the brittle freedom of getting your way, but the durable freedom of meeting life without losing yourself. Money can vanish, status can shift, relationships can change. But the capacity to remain aware, to return to center, to feel deeply without being swallowed, no one can repossess that. This doesn't make you invincible. Pain will still arrive. Loss will still arrive. Age and Chen visit everyone, but pain without panic is lighter. Grief without self-annihilation is honest. Fear without paralysis becomes a teacher. Emotions stop being rulers and become messengers. You hear them, you're no longer hired by them. So the question becomes unavoidable. Who is in charge? Are you steering your inner life, or is it steering you? Most of us vacillate. Some days we're captains, other days we feel like passengers in our own body. The invitation here isn't perfection, it's practice. It's the slow shift from reactivity to response, from compulsion to choice. You can amass accomplishments and still feel haunted by a single disapproving glance. You can be admired from a distance and still be brittle inside. If one comment can collapse your mood, that is not power, it is a hostage situation. If you need constant praise to breathe, that is not love, it is an IV drip. The hardest work is the quiet work, Not the victories on a stage, but the moments when you sit down, close your eyes, and watch the mind try to run. When you notice the ache to pick up your phone, the itch to escape, the flood of thoughts telling you 1,000 urgent things, and you stay. You breathe, you feel your feet, you let your nervous system remember how to settle. That's training, not glamorous but transformative. With time, your inner posture changes. You start to trust that you can feel discomfort without capsizing. You can meet joy without clinging. You can hear criticism without immediately shrinking or attacking. You can want something peaceably without letting the wanting hijack your peace. Control shifts from the outside in. It stops being a white-knuckle grip and becomes a rootedness, a way of standing. You still plan, organize, and act. You still care, but you don't place the weight of your well-being on things that break. You let the river be a river, and you learn to move with it. If this speaks to you, it's because you've already sensed the truth in your own life. You felt the moment when a plan failed, but you didn't. You've tasted the clarity that arrives after a deep breath. You've seen how one small pause can change the trajectory of a conversation. None of that required the world to change. It required you to come home to yourself. Inner sovereignty is not mystical. It's built in moments. 3 conscious breaths before you reply to a message, noticing your shoulders and unclenching your jaw, putting a hand on your chest when anxiety rises and staying with the rhythm of your heartbeat, choosing one meaningful task instead of scattering your attention across 10, looking someone in the eyes and listening all the way to the end of their sentence. These are small acts of mastery. They add up, and slowly the balance of power shifts. The same life that used to toss you around begins to feel different. Not because storms stop, but because you stop handing them the wheel. You become a good host to your own experience. The pain, the joy, the boredom, the beauty, everything is allowed to visit. Nothing is allowed to rule. That is real freedom. Not the freedom to make life behave, but the freedom to meet life as it is without abandoning yourself. It's quieter than conquest, but stronger. It doesn't need trumpets. It doesn't need proof. It shows itself in the way you breathe, the way you start to speak, the way you choose the next simple, right thing. So I'll ask you, not as a test, but as an invitation. Where does your mind still run the show? Where does a craving yank the strings? Where does fear write the script? Notice one place, just one. And instead of waging war with it, turn toward it. Get curious. Breathe. See what it's made of. You don't have to fix everything today. Begin with one moment of presence. If this opens something for you, stay with it. Keep going. The path isn't loud, but it is reliable. Every time you choose awareness over autopilot, you reclaim a little ground. Every time you feel a feeling without obeying it, you reinforce a new pattern. Every time you return to your breath, you remind your nervous system, we are safe enough to be here. You cannot command the ocean, but you can become one who knows how to swim, and that changes everything. If this resonated, you're welcome to continue the journey with the next video because repetition matters. Not because you need more information, but because reminders help you remember what you already know. Mastery of the mind isn't about becoming someone else. It's about returning again and again to who you are when you're not running. In the comments, if you want to share, name one situation where you'll practice this today. Not to perform, to anchor, to remember. That single ordinary act is how inner freedom begins to grow roots. You don't have to control the world to be at peace. You only have to stop giving away the one thing the world can't control, your presence, your attention, your choice to stay. That is the only kind of power that lasts.